Hello, my spirited living friends, and those of you that make your way here from Instagram. Deborah Roth here from Spirited Living, and back with another installment of Embodying Your Divine Feminine with your Inner Goddess team. I invite you to really kind of sit with the meanings of all that for you. I describe who the divine feminine is in a separate video, which you can access if you hit the little eye in the corner of this YouTube video. But basically, it's really about honoring and the goddesses, our inner goddess team, or the archetypes that honor all of the different traits that show up for us as being the positive, or what I call the divine or sacred feminine, honoring our intuition, our emotions, honoring our connection to our body, to nature, our capacity to collaborate and cooperate with people. So all of that we play with each week. So I invite you, if you have not subscribed, to subscribe here. I love your comments. I've gotten wonderful comments from people about this. And I try also a little bit when I'm introducing the goddess of the week to give you some ways to embrace that energy, that divinely feminine energy within yourself, whether you're male or female, doesn't matter, gender free, for some specific traits or characteristics or gifts that this goddess, embracing this particular goddess, can do for us. So all that said, the goddess this week, we've just passed a couple days past the new moon in Gemini. We're also into the beginning of June. And so I always look and see if there's something relevant to the time of year and or the specific day or celebration. And June, debated in some circles, is was possibly named after the Roman goddess Juno. And let's see, June 2nd was Juno Regina Day, which was a day to celebrate Juno in her role. She was a Roman goddess, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. She was a Roman goddess who personified, she was considered to be the queen of heaven, the goddess of marriage and matrimony and fidelity and fertility. She was also pre-Roman, even Greek times, pre-Hellenic times, to be the goddess of a moon goddess, a triple goddess. And that's actually, we're going to play with her when we do our chant today. So you find really much more anywhere you look for information about Juno. It automatically goes to Hera. Oh, I thought I brought the books over with me, but I didn't. They're two wonderful books, and I'll put them in the description. Asteroid Goddesses by Demetra George, and she talks about, without going into the astrology of it all, 4 of the asteroids, which are 4 of the Greek goddesses, or Roman goddesses actually. So lots of great information about Juno / Hera there, and also a wonderful book, old book now, from like 1992, still available, called Lost Goddesses of Early Greece. And it really talks about 8 different goddesses, Juno, Hera being one of them, that gives their mythology, that tells their story before the patriarchy got a hold of them. And any of the Roman goddesses, and I've talked about this before whenever we've talked about the Greek or Roman goddesses, the Roman goddesses are basically the goddesses of the conquerors. And in this case, when Rome conquered Greece, they took over all of the rich mythology around Hera. And as I said, pre-Hellenic, she was a goddess in her own right. She was not the consort. She had no consort. She was not the wife of Zeus. That's how we read about her in Homer and the other myth makers from ancient times. And she was portrayed in those very patriarchal cultures as being this nagging, jealous, horrible, argumentative wife of Zeus, when actually she was responding to his infidelities and his raging. the myth around her is that Zeus saw her, thought she was beautiful, turned himself. I mean, I'm really giving you the very streamlined description of this. Turned himself into a bird in a thunderstorm, and he fluttered to the ground, and she took him to her breast because she was so compassionate, and he turned into a man and ravaged her. A lot of raping going on in these patriarchal myths, really perfectly personifying what happened with all the matrilineal, all the matriarchies that existed in the world before those civilizations that really kept to the patrilineal lineage. So I mean, very metaphorical when you read all of these kinds of things. And so Hera was actually in her most goddess, in her most independent form, before she was overthrown, before she was overwhelmed by Zeus, was a triple moon goddess, and there were festivals to her. One was called the Hera, is probably how you pronounce it, and it was a foot race that predated the Olympics, and it was girls and women. It was for girls and women, and there were 3 different races that were, let's see, Hera Parthenia was the child maiden of the new moon and the budding spring, connected to the season of spring. Hera Telia, or Telia, who was the fulfilled bride of the full moon and fertile summer. And then Hera Chera, who was the solitary widow of the dark moon and the quiet winter. So all of these really represent phases of the moon, the seasons. In the way that I was taught about the divine feminine and feminist spirituality, goddess spirituality, was that there are actually 4 faces of the goddess: maiden, as I just talked about, mother, and then before you got to wise woman crone, it was the Amazon, or the queen, which seems particularly apropos for Hera because she was a queen goddess. She was considered queen of the heavens. So when the winners, all of the winners were given olive crowns, which represented peace and fertility, which is something else that Hera is connected to, and a share of a cow sacrifice, because Hera, pre-Hellenic, was a cow goddess in the time of Taurus, and it was believed when they partaked of that sacred cow that was sacrificed for Hera, that Hera would become part of them. They would become one with the goddess. Hera, and I love this makes lots of sense. The word was derived from the roots he and Era, which means the earth. And it's also considered to be the feminine form of hero. So there's heroes and there's Heras, which you may have heard of that before anyway. So I think that's just about all I want to tell you about. There's so much to say about her because she is one of the preeminent Greek and then later Roman goddesses when she was taken over. But what I would love to do is share with you one of my favorite chants that we actually do in a circle. There's a really lovely entrainment circle where you step and move around a circle as you're singing this chant. So I'll sing it first with the 3 faces of the goddess, of the divine feminine, which is in ancient times how she was viewed and how she was celebrated: maiden, mother, and crone. I have a wonderful piece. If DM me or email me, whatever, reach out to me on YouTube. I have a wonderful piece that I wrote that talks about the 4 faces of the divine feminine, bringing in that Amazon queen phase. And I've talked about that here before, probably a while ago. But that Amazon queen phase that really acknowledges that we're living a lot longer, that there's a lot that women do when they're in those years, in between their mothering years and their crone, wise woman crone, elder years. So I'll sing both versions of it. I do want to show you, though, just a quick image. I found many images of her with a peacock, And I think the message, so there's several messages, several ways that you can embody her energy within you. One is to look at the ways that you are a queen in your world, that you honor your sovereignty. And boy, one of the places that I read, I think this was actually from Asteroid Goddesses, Hera as the jealous and quarrelsome wife, she was depicted that way, when in reality, she's an image of a turbulent nation princess, coerced but never really subdued by the alien conquerors. So think about where in your life you hold your own in the face of people, doesn't have to be men, doesn't have to be conquerors, but in the face of people who would try to sublimate you. So that's a very kind of strong, queenly way to look at her. And the other comes out of this myth of Hera and the peacock. And it actually, I think, became an Aesop fable, that the peacock was Hera's favorite bird. And the peacock approached Hera and said, "Why don't I have a beautiful voice like the nightingale?" And Hera said to him, basically, "Because you're beautiful. You're my favorite bird. You have such exquisite colors." And the peacock was never content with that, always wanted to have more. It wasn't enough to just be beautiful visually. And so really, I think that the message that comes out of that is to acknowledge and embrace your gifts, and are there areas in your life where you're not fully appreciating something that you do or have, or a special characteristic or trait or gift that you embody, and yearning for something else, but rather to be content and happy and proud of the gifts that you do have, rather than looking for something else. This was a great piece I found about that. Instead of being ambitious of having more endowments than nature has allotted to us, we should spare no pains to cultivate those we have, and which a sourness or peevishness of temper, instead of improving, will certainly lessen and impair. So the idea is not to strive to be someone or something that you're not, and to embrace the gifts that you have. So that's the peacock story, and I think a good reminder of what Hera's message can be for us. And so the chant that I want to share with you, the threefold one, goes like this. A woman is a maiden starting new, growing into motherhood, leading to the wisdom of the crone, living deep within, sitting in the middle of the web she spins. I'll sing that one more time. It's the threefold one, how I originally learned it. A woman is a maiden starting new, growing into motherhood, leading to the wisdom of the crone, living deep within, sitting in the middle of the web she spins. And I've added in recent years, as my knowledge of the goddess and the four faces of the goddess, I've embraced that more. I've added the queen in there, and that one goes like this. Need a little bit more help with that one. A woman is a maiden starting new, growing into motherhood, leading to the power of the queen, blazing deep within, dancing where the wisdom of the crone begins. A woman is a maiden starting new, growing into motherhood, leading to the power of the queen, blazing deep within, dancing where the wisdom of the crone begins. So I invite you to honor all sides, all aspects of whether you're more drawn to the 3 or 4 faces of Hera, of this moon goddess, Juno, the month of June, and then especially to think about the message of Juno and her favorite bird, the peacock, and just celebrate and own and look to just evolve and improve further the gifts that you already have, rather than yearning for others. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to seeing you back here next week. Namaste.